Right. I'm trying my best not to get distracted by crafting, but I am 100% getting distracted by crafting right now. Hey folks, I'm Curious Cobb, and this is your intro to crafting in New World. When you open the trade skills menu, you'll see 3 different sections. Gathering is the process of collecting the raw material from Eternum, the world around you. Refining takes that raw material and converts it into usable resources. And crafting takes those usable resources, and indeed some raw materials, and converts them to usable items, things like weapons and armor and such. Now, gathering is a huge topic in and of itself. We've actually made a separate video, which is linked on screen if you're interested in having a look at that now. Refinement is the process of taking raw material and converting it into a usable resource. So, for example, I've currently got 77 iron ore in my inventory, which I've collected from my gathering profession. Just real quick, I want you to note here that the weight of that is 15.4 altogether. Because that's going to be really interesting, as you can kind of see in a little moment. So I'm going to take that 77 iron ore over to this refinement plant, which is the smelting station, and I'm going to convert this to iron ingots. Now, this is obviously turning this into a much more usable resource that you can see I can now use in tier 2 metals. So I can use that, for example, to create armors or weapons that require iron. It's not the only thing we can make here, and there's a bunch of cool materials that we can make and of increasingly high tier levels, and these get used in more advanced recipes, of course. What is super interesting about this is that even just with the refinement process, we already have these refining materials that you can see here. So for example, this shell dust flux can actually be improved by adding tier 4 refining materials, which can do things like increasing yield, increasing quality in some cases, depending on what you're producing. So yeah, even in the refinement process, we have that level of detail, which I just think is incredible. But for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to create these iron ingots. And then when we create all of them, we've got a little bit of a bonus there because we had a 5% chance of getting a bonus. It's not that high, but it's high enough to give us a little bit of a bonus. And when we check the weight of this now, we've now got 23 iron ingots, and that's 6.9 down from what it was before. Don't forget, if you are struggling for storage space, then do look into refining some of your raw materials into their refined version. It's rarely the wrong thing to do. For crafting itself, this is where it starts to get really interesting. The crafting trees are extremely deep with lots of flexibility around them. And let's have a look at one of these just to kind of give you a feel for it. So for example, if I pick the iron spear, I'm interested in spears. I use spears quite a lot with this build. You can see here that it's got a recipe, and that recipe has various different ingredients that we can supply to be able to craft it. Now I can just go ahead and craft this right now, and you can see that here's a bit of a readout of what that item will look like if I was to craft it. The base item itself is a pretty basic 200 gear score spear. If I use basic ingredients, it has a low chance of maybe getting a perk. It has a medium chance of getting attributes, that is, for example, strength and dexterity to make it slightly better. And it has a probability of being somewhere in the region of gear level 205 and 245 based on how good a weaponsmith I am, which is not very good, by the way. Now, one of the things I can do here is actually start changing the ingredients that I provide to the recipe to increase my chances of creating a better item. Now, I don't really have anything in the tier 2 timber section. That's the primary material because obviously it's made mostly out of wood. But if I had like stronger wood, then I could sort of select different tier ones, and that would be really good. But I don't really have anything in that one, so I'll move down to the next section. The metal section, so for the actual tip of the spear, now this is one of the secondary ingredients, so it's not the primary ingredient, but it can still increase the capabilities of the staff. And you can see here I have a tier 2 iron ingot, which I've got loads of, which is great. I have another tier 2, but an uncommon fey iron, which should be able to increase the quality a little bit. And I have a rare resource void metal at tier 3. Now, unfortunately, I don't actually have enough void metal to be able to contribute, but you can see by selecting void metal, suddenly this has gone from quite a pretty poor spear to has the chance of being a really good one, just by using a higher tier material in the secondary slot. So that's really cool. I can also in the leathers, so this is presumably the binding that goes around the, to attach the spearhead to the shaft or whatever. I can upgrade from coarse leather at tier 2 to rugged leather at tier 3 because I'm really good with my leather skill. So I'm going to select that. And once again, this has jumped up. So the worst that this item will be 220 from a base of 200, which is great. Now, first of all, I'm going to switch this back to Fey Iron because I can't do that. So unfortunately, I lose a little bit of that, but I can still reach a maximum of 250, which is great. The last thing I want to look at now are the attributes and the perks. And these are still medium and low respectively, and it's something which probably I'd like to improve. I'd like to have some good attributes on this spear. I don't want it to just be a basic wooden spear. And I would like to have a perk that's like some sort of extra skill on there as well, like, I don't know, like an increased chance to critical hit or something. So I can do that using this column here. So the special resources, these come from special ingredients that drop throughout the world, whether it's from killing mobs or looting chests or something. And you can see that each of them, I've gathered these over the course of the last couple of days, and each of them buffs either a stat or starts to provide a perk. So for example, you know, this one, the Iron Battle Medal, increases strength, so that's going to add some strength bonus to my weapon when I craft it. Whereas this one, the Pristine Whetstone, applies the Vicious perk, which is, I believe, an increase in critical hit chance. So this is, you know, these are all really great, but what I know for a fact is that dexterity is really my primary focus for this build. So I'm going to go with dexterity because I want to make sure that I have a good chance of having dexterity attributes on this weapon. Meanwhile, I still have a pretty low chance. Oh, now it's changed to a gem slot, so I could actually get a gem on this item, which would be really cool. So what I'm going to do to try and increase my chances of that is actually try and pay some Azoth. Now, this is really cool. So for certain weapons, you can actually pay upwards to 75 Azoth to increase your chances of getting some better stats on this weapon. Now, in this case, I can't go this high for this particular weapon, but I can add 15 in. And if I accept that, you can see that the chance of a gem slot has now changed to very high, which is awesome. So if I craft this weapon, I should have a pretty good weapon, hopefully somewhere at the high end of 215 to 250, with a good dexterity bonus, and hopefully even with a gem slot. So if we craft that now, let's see what we get. Wow, I got a 250. So I got the highest end of that range. That's fantastic. That's super lucky. So that means my base damage is up to 97, which is great. I've also got a plus 11 dexterity, which is fantastic, and a keen Vault Kick. So Vault Kick increases random crit hit chance by 6.9% for 5 seconds. That's actually excellent. So with this build that I've got, which is very focused on crit, actually, that's a fantastic skill to have. So that's actually an awesome find and really great drop from doing that work. So really good. I mean, it's low for where I am on the gear levels at the moment, but actually as a bit of kit, it's actually really, really good. Another way to improve the quality of the items you produce through crafting is through cooking. As you can see, there's certain recipes like this one, herb crusted broccoli, that will actually increase the quality of the items you produce. In this case, it increases the minimum and maximum gear score of an item you produce in weaponsmithing by 10. That's awesome, because if you're producing something to sell, then those extra 10 levels could mean the difference between it selling or not selling. And also, like, if you're crafting a legendary item or something, which is possible, then actually you want that chance to be able to get that super duper legendary item that's actually better than the original. So definitely worth leveling your cooking as you're going along, and keep your eye out for some of these slightly obscure ingredients that maybe you don't find everywhere, because hey, they're going to be super valuable to you as a crafter. Thanks so much for joining us for this intro to crafting. I've been Curious Cobb, and we'll see you next time.